What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode. Today we got a special one with John Paul Ortiz, who is a full-time NASA intern. He's a full-time employee there. He's going through his second internship at NASA, and he is also a senior in mechanical engineering. He is graduating next fall, and we had a short conversation where John shared his experience on how he got his first and second internships at NASA, what it's like to work for NASA, what led him to work for NASA, and how he found his passion as an engineer. Not only that, but he also shares experience on how he got his first internship as a freshman in mechanical engineering, which I think a lot of freshmen in engineering in general would love to know. And not only that, but we also share much more. So if you like this episode, if you get any valuable information from this episode, please make sure you give it a like, subscribe to the channel, because it really does help the channel grow. And so without further ado, here's my conversation with John Paul Ortiz, NASA intern and senior mechanical engineering student. Peace. All right, cool.
Awesome.
All right, so you were telling us that you are a senior in mechanical engineering, and I can tell through your TikTok that you have this huge passion for rockets and the universe, and like a lot of stuff that I've seen on your TikTok. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and what led you. How do you find this passion of yours?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. I mean, I always was fascinated about science and technology. I have good memories as a kid, like asking my mom about like science stuff, and never getting quite the answers that I like, and that's how like the journey started. I kind of first wanted to be a scientist, and I was very interested in that. But growing up, I decided to go for engineering, and I found a great passion about aerospace, especially first airplanes. So I wanted to start like doing aeronautics.
Yeah.
So when I first went to college, I was really invested into aeronautics, and I was always amazed by technology. I mean, I grew up watching like YouTube channels, like like Veritasium and what's the name of the other one? Like that, right? Like science-related YouTube channels.
Right,
and they
right.
really inspired me to get more into that. Like my family doesn't really have a background into engineering. I think I'm the first mechanical engineer in my family, and I just really decided to go for engineering because it's all about innovation, creating new things, and kind of like looking for what's coming up next, you know. And that's kind of how it first started. And then here in college, I really was invested in my classes. I remember taking thermodynamics, and I loved that class because I knew it was already all about rockets and things like that.
And you love thermodynamics. I never heard anyone say it.
It was like a toxic relationship, really. I loved that class, but I was so bad.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
There's two sections for thermodynamics in my school, and I took the first one. I did great. I thought I was gonna get the A. I got a B, but for the second part, that's a really hard one. I actually failed that class. I had to retake it, and you can't believe it because I love that class, and it was so frustrating that I didn't get a passing grade. But that was fine. I saw it as an opportunity for growth. I retook it. I learned everything very well the second time, and I had a lot of people that support me, like my professor. He really supported me, like my thermodynamics professor.
The one who failed you?
Yeah. So I'm from a small college, so like we did our professors really well, and he helped me a lot. And then I applied for a grant, and I got it to do research in the summer, and I kind of started investing in my time into like going into that path, you know, getting into the aerospace and propulsion and thermodynamics. First, I had an internship on construction, but that really wasn't for me. I really didn't like construction. So I remember making the decision of like investing my time to like kind of like rather go into a research that is not very well paid, to get into the field that I liked than stay on a good paid job in something that I don't like.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like my logic back in the day, and I think it had paid off.
When did you for your first internship, that construction internship, how did you get that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of people have a lot of trouble getting their first internship.
Yeah.
Man, it's just about asking. I was a freshman, and my first semester was over. I did really good. I think everyone does really great on their first semester, and then it gets really hard later on. But I did good. I got like a 3.7. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
And then I applied to a bunch of construction companies in my city, and I got accepted for the construction department in my university. So I was kind of like, it was a good pay, but it was like kind of financed by work study. So if you're familiar with universities, here they have work study plans for like to support your education, right? And that's how I managed to get into that position. And I was a whole year into that construction position until I realized that wasn't quite for me, and I wanted to invest my time more wisely to get into the field that I like.
Right. So you were just asking after your first semester, or your first year or first semester, you started looking for internships straight off the bat.
That was my first internship. Yeah.
After your first semester or first year?
First internship, and it was the first semester. So I got
Oh wow, first semester, just getting into internships. That's crazy. I feel like that's that definitely blessed. That's awesome. That's really good.
I was very lucky, honestly. And the matter is just like look for opportunities in your university, because there's probably a lot of ways you can get experience.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that are gonna help you. They want to help you.
Right. Got it. Well, so the key is to just, as soon as you get to school, as soon as you get to college, start asking, start looking. It's never too early to start looking for internships. So like that's the main takeaway there.
Exactly. Okay. I think at the end of the day, you're never prepared for an internship. You can have experience, but you're always going to learn on the job.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, and learning on the job is something that we're going to kind of like transition. Now, your second internship, was that at NASA? Because I think that the listeners will be very interested in like that NASA internship. How do you get that? Was that in your second year as a sophomore or third year as a junior?
Well, yeah. So actually,
how about this? Excuse me. Sorry. How about this? How do you prepare for that to apply for NASA? How do you say, all right, I'm going for NASA? Like, did you get any more preparation, any more experience?
In my case, it took me a long time. Like, I never thought I was going to be ready to apply for NASA. NASA, I think for most engineers, it seems like a really hard place to get in.
Right.
So I like kind of over-prepare myself. It wasn't until my senior year that I applied to NASA. The previous year, I went through research, different positions, and kind of like guiding my knowledge into that field. So even though I didn't have experience, I wanted to be at least book smart on that field of rock,
So you took research classes related to what NASA may be researching?
Exactly, on my topic of interest, which was at the time gas turbine engines, like air engines,
right.
thermodynamics. And so I was very stubborn trying to get into that field. So I got a research opportunity in the Department of Energy. Then I got my research in thermodynamics. When I told you I failed thermodynamics too, but I had a great professor that helped me out, and I learned so much there about like propulsion, and that's when I was hooked,
Yeah.
And then I was really interested in research. I was gonna go for a PhD when I got an opportunity to go to Belgium and do research over there, but the pandemic kicked in, So unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that. And I think that's how it all started. I applied to NASA based on need, I needed to get a job. The pandemic started, and I kind of invested a lot of my money ahead to go to that research opportunity that was going to be on the summer, but the pandemic kicked in and I had a big debt. So I needed to pay the bills, right? And I realized, hey, I already have a lot of experience, so I should be applied for co-ops. At this time, I got a real industry internship besides the construction one. So never in aerospace. So I applied to like 20 different positions, and NASA was the one that got me. So I applied to SpaceX, I applied to Firefly, Singularity Aerospace, most of the launcher providers that are like new now.
Right. So let me ask you this. So you mentioned, so far before you got into NASA, you had your internship right after your freshman year at a construction company where you did a work study for a year, right? And then after that, you got into doing gas turbine research, and then obviously you took thermodynamics.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the Department of Energy. Did you get an internship there too?
That was another research position. So it was affiliated with my university. That's why I say, like, be aware of the news at your university. Try to be involved, because right there is where you're gonna get the opportunities, and are right there for you. You just gotta knock on the door, and they're gonna open.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It reminds me of like one of the things that I've shared on the channel, the YouTube channel, is that like if you cannot get internships or co-ops and you have to get experience, like one way is to look at undergraduate research that you can look into. And it seems like that's exactly what you did when you found this opportunity with the Department of Energy.
Exactly. That's the way I wanted to go, especially because, like I said, my experience was in construction, but I really wanted to do an aerospace, get into the aerospace field or market. Mm-hmm. So research was my gateway into the aerospace market, because then I grew the experience needed to get positions as an engineer.
Right. That's awesome. That's wonderful. Okay, so it's kind of funny how you say you pretty much went to NASA because, like, as a last option. It's kind of like what you said, yeah.
That's exactly. I'm surprised myself, and I think the biggest thing is to highlight about that. I think is you just apply. I think something that I learned is that you lose every opportunity that you don't try.
Right.
You don't hit, you miss.
Right. Exactly. So you mentioned, okay, so now that I'm not going to Belgium, all right, so I'm going to look for an opportunity here locally. And so you started applying to a bunch of aerospace companies, like space related, like NASA, SpaceX. So was NASA the only one that called you, or how did that work? Did you have to down select, or you were like, all right, I'm going for NASA? Like, that's something that I want to get into more.
So I actually went for NASA because it was the only one that called me back. Mm-hmm. And one of the great things about NASA is that they actually read the resumes you send, as opposed to other places where they have an automated system based on like keywords. So you gotta type the right keywords on your resume to be even considered the most likely. Right. And something that I learned from a professor. I had a professor that she worked for Facebook, and she was banking. She was doing really good over there, earning like $180,000 a year. But she decided to go back as a professor. But the point is that she said that most of the applications you apply to, they are not even seen. Like, they already have the candidates, and they find those candidates through either career fairs or like those type of opportunities. When you apply online, most of those positions are already chosen. Like, the people is already selected.
Right.
And I really learned about that when I applied I literally applied to 50 positions, and only NASA called me back. And I was well prepared for most of them.
Yeah.
But I think it's very important to know how to apply to those. So if you can go to career first, I highly recommend it, because if you see one of the recruiters face to
Yeah,
face, you get to sell yourself better.
exactly. No, that's a really good point, and that's something that I've also experienced. So, I used to work for the U.S. government, like until a couple of years ago, and then that's like, what you say is exactly right. Like sometimes when positions open, uh, in most cases, they already have someone in mind that they're going to put in that position. Either that, or they are looking for someone that is recommended by someone that already works within the company. So they're looking for somebody that like, so you basically they're working for someone that already has connections. It's really difficult for someone that doesn't know anyone to get into an environment like that, or like NASA, or maybe like the government in general, I think.
For example, something that they usually mention at NASA is that people that get hired, sorry,
No worries.
most people that get hired full time at NASA is because they already went through the internship process. And you have to be an undergraduate, you don't even have to be on school. If you graduate early, you can still apply for internships, because those internships start teaching you about how what NASA does, but also how they do it, because they have their own systems, and it's much easier to transition someone that already knows how everything works into a full-time position than someone
Right.
that never worked with you.
Right. And I think it's important to mention that I, I think it's safe to say that we're not trying to discourage anyone from applying to NASA if they don't know anyone. But still apply. I mean, John, you didn't know anyone, right? And you applied and you got in, and now you have a way in.
So, and yeah, I think go like we said earlier, you miss every shot you don't take. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. That's awesome. All right. So you started working there at NASA, and you had one internship, and now you're going through your second internship, right? Are you working there full time? I think you did mention that you're working there full time, and you're a part time student. So before we get into a more NASA specific, like related to what you do and stuff, does NASA provide any type of as an intern, now that you've been there at least it's a second internship, do they offer any type of reimbursement while you're in the school, while you work, kind of like a training position for them, so that they can then hire you? Do they offer any of that, or you're still paying out of your pocket for your own school?
Yeah, you pay for your own school. Yeah, I haven't heard of any opportunities to pay for school, but they are very flexible. I think you can leave for a year to go to graduate school or complete your school. You can do part-time and very flexible schedules if you coordinate with your supervisor to actually finish school. In my case, currently, I'm a pathways intern, which means that I'm already a civil servant, and I'm on the transition process to a full-time position. And as opposed to a regular internship, right here I work as a full-time employee. I'm a full-time employee. And in my particular case, I am a part-time student, because I only have 12 more credits to finish, and then I go full-time.
Awesome. So you basically have, are you certain that they will hire you, or do you already talk about that, or still you have to go through a pool of selection process, like after the internship? How does that work?
That's a great question. So the program is called Pathways, and the program is non-competitive. So you're given the opportunity once you graduate to decide if you're going to be a full-time employee. So we already went through the interview process. I already have my organization, my supervisor. Once I graduate, it's going to be exactly the same. And I'm already with work I'm going to do once I graduate. So it is non-competitive, which means that I can choose, but they also have to choose me, you know?
Right.
Like, do they like my work?
Exactly.
And if I perform correctly, as well as do I want to stay at NASA?
Got it. So it's got to be a mutual agreement, obviously. Like,
yeah, but it's not means that you are the only one.
Got it. Awesome. Okay, so now let's get into a little bit more, not so much technical, but in general terms. So can you give us, let's say, a general background on NASA? Obviously, that I think that a lot of people have a very basic understanding of what NASA does and the national, what is it called? National
Aeronautics and Space Administration.
Got it. So obviously they're into space and aeronautics and astronautics. So where do you work? Do you focus on rockets mainly?
That's a great question.
Outer space?
So, NASA is such a huge organization. It has over 1,700 employees throughout the nation. And what I do, I focus on pneumatics. So what I do is systems related to pneumatics, but specifically for launch, So there's a launch side, and there's a lot of things that need to be accommodated for the rocket to launch. The rocket has a lot of subsystems that need to have air, natural gas, and other gases that are important for operations, right? Mm-hmm. And I work in the pneumatics team, which means that I accommodate all those requirements through infrastructure. So I change the pipelines and whatnot. I'm part of that team.
Yeah,
it's not
right.
myself.
Right. So are you involved in the process pre-launch or after launch, like things that the astronauts are going to be dealing with once in outer space, like supportability things per se, support systems once they're in outer space, or kind of like pre-launch?
So currently I'm working on pre-launch. So it's all the ground support systems, everything that's related to the time zero, missions are critical and everything has to work correctly.
Right. You got one shot. You got one shot.
You got only one shot. Exactly. So a lot of certifications and validations need to take place before we're even close to launching,
Right. So that's actually a question that I had too. So it's a great segue, I think. How long do the preparations take? So let's say we start preparations today for whatever, like Alligator X, let's call it, like a rocket, Alligator X. So we start preparations today. When do you think, like estimate, of course, like the rocket will be launched? How long does it take?
What do you mean, like we start preparations today? Do you already have an engine?
Oh, right. That's
have a rocket.
So let's say the rocket is ready to go, right? Like everything is already said and done. I'm not talking about design of the rocket or anything like that. So the rocket is ready. So like obviously you have to have all the support systems in place. You have to bring, I don't know, like what is it that you need to support a launch? Let's put it that way first.
All right. Let's say you already have a rocket, right?
Yeah.
Well, you probably don't have a place to launch it. Let's say you don't. So it's probably going to take about 2 years to launch that rocket because ground support systems are so important. Every launch site is specific for its particular rocket. So it's a whole new infrastructure that needs to be built for that new rocket, unless you design it in such a way that it's similar to something that already exists. But it's a long process.
Right.
What SpaceX is doing, it's amazing because their level of I would say quality is really high because the systems they create, they have a lot of systems, rockets already ready, and they already have the infrastructure to support one of them. And because they're all basically identical, they support all of them. So that's why they have the ability to launch so many. But once you do the first time is really long. It's gonna take a long time.
Right. So the ground support system obviously has a huge impact on the type of rocket that it can support. Like not any rocket, not all ground support systems are made for all rockets. It's not one size fits all.
Exactly, they're all different.
Wow.
They have to be specific. Yeah.
Jeez, that's so you recently posted a successful launch on your TikTok. What was that? Was that recent or?
Well, that was a launch of SpaceX. So I work for NASA, but I like SpaceX. I really like SpaceX and what they do.
Yeah, what are the main differences between, like, from your perspective, like NASA and SpaceX? Obviously, you mentioned that SpaceX is more efficient because they have one type of ground support system, and then all rockets are very similar, so they can use the same ground support system. Like, what else is different for SpaceX?
Well, there's so many differences. There, in fact, a lot of people compare SpaceX with NASA, and they try to compare them. But you really cannot compare them because one is a governmental agency and the other is a launch provider. So they create big launch rockets to send to space, and NASA focus on exploration and space missions. So they do everything related to space, not only rockets. So actually, they collaborate. So, but regarding like the type of work that they do, NASA is much more cautious, because they have a lot of experience and they have accountability with the public, right?
Right.
Because if something goes bad, everyone is gonna know about that, because representing NASA means representing the government and representing the American citizens, as opposed to SpaceX, which is a private company and can take a lot of risk, like blowing rockets, which is what they're basically doing right now. So on developing a rocket, they take much less time because they can take those type of risks.
Right. How long does it take for SpaceX to develop a rocket based on what you know? Do you have any idea how long it takes to develop one?
I mean, rocket science is going to be rocket science. Even SpaceX is going to take a long time. Right now, they're developing the Starship. So that's the rocket that they plan to send to Mars. And that rocket is built from zero, from the ground up. Yeah. And that has been taking about 10 years to develop.
Sounds about
you start
right.
with the engines, and right now they're on the final stages of having a fully working orbital rocket. So it's about 10 years, even for the most efficient companies out there.
Right. No, I think that sounds about right. Because so I used to work with I still work with submarines, and that's usually how long it takes. Well, this one's taking usually it takes about like 10 years to develop, to go from scratch all the way to, all right, we're ready to start building. And even after you start building, you still have a lot of components and systems that are still going through detailed design. Like, you're still fixing things, and so nothing is ever smooth. Like, there's always something that's going wrong or like failing. And
and I think in that way, submarines and rockets are very similar, because originally they're only bought from governments. So what does that mean, right? It basically means that they had to get things right, and there's no competition. There's no market to sell submarines but the government, which means that there's no much innovation, and that makes things really hard to develop. Right now, I think I love to say that we're on like the golden age of space, because there is the two billionaires that exist, the two big richest person in the world, which are Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, are developing rockets, which means there is a lot of investment like never has been on aerospace. And
no, go ahead.
And investment drives innovation. There has to be some sort of interest for things to innovate, change, and improve. Right?
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, though, like, I feel like it's good that you're throwing a lot of money to more exploration, but I think there's a threshold at which, even if you throw $2 or $10 or $20 billion at a problem, it's just not gonna it's not gonna move, or because maybe some problems are, or maybe some research is time dependent and not so much money dependent, and you can't really like explore parallel paths, and it's just like one critical path that you have to go through, and then the only thing that you can do is you can just wait to see what happens, so like
it's very complex,
yeah so
I think you're right.
So from your perspective, So you've been dealing with pneumatics, helping out NASA. What are some? How has school helped you perform as an engineer working from NASA? Like, what are the main subjects as a mechanical engineer that you think, wow, I am so glad that I got to learn this, because otherwise I wouldn't know what to do in this scenario? How useful is it?
As a propulsion engineer, I think it's very important. Like school, learning the concept of school is very important, because having that ability to come up with calculations, understand concepts on the spot when they ask you, is really going to make you shine on the field. So understand your concepts, Once you get those concepts, you don't really have to be the fastest calculator or a human calculator. You need to understand the theory. And
what kind of concepts are we talking about? Let's say like one or two that you remember just off the bat.
I say as a propulsion engineer, it has to be dynamics, thermodynamics, and fluids. Those are the subjects that are going to help a lot. And regarding concepts, it has to be the conservation of energy, and mass and momentum. Knowing those three things, you basically, everything on rocket science is built up upon that base, right? That
Newton's third law, action reaction.
Exactly, yeah. So based on those, you can really come up with everything else. And if you pay close attention to your books, that's basically what they do. They just derive the equations from Newton's laws or the laws of conservation.
Right. How much programming do you use, if you use any at all, or do you just use software to run simulations for you based on your calculations? Like, do you do any programming?
Yeah, so I think as a mechanical engineer, you can do programming, especially if you're doing like control systems and things like that. My first internship, I was doing a closed loop for a control system, which is something commonly seen for computer science. But as a mechanical engineer, you have a better grasp of the concepts related with that field. So you can do programs, and programs are going to benefit you so much because they're going to help you automate everything that you do. So even if you are a mechanical engineer, you can really take advantage of your programming skills to improve,
Right. What kind of, do you use any specific software, or is it like a NASA proprietary software that you use like for programming purposes?
Well, actually, we just use, on my experience, every place is different. Like I said, NASA is so big. I work with Excel. I program in VBA, virtual basic applications. And, it's based on, I think it's based on C# or C++. But if you understand the logic, you understand the structures later on, and you can apply it.
Right. It's that's something that I've been dealing with too in the last 10. I've been in the field 9 years. Wow. And the hardest thing that I've used is I did get to use AutoCAD Mechanical my second or third year when I was doing technical work. But then majority of my time has been just Excel. Like, I think it's just like a government-wide thing, just Excel, it'll do it. And then and if you need any type of specific software, then that's when the government usually contracts it out, and they give it to like Lockheed Martin or like those major like defense contractors, in my experience.
That's true. I do use other programs. I use Creo. I use Creo mainly, but I also use something called RefProp, which is publicly available. It's by NIST, I think. And I also use MadCat. Yeah. And so MadCat is just like a way to present your formulas in a more professional way. And it helps you with calculations. It does calculations as well, but it's like analytical.
Yeah.
Creo is for design. So as a mechanical engineer, you're probably going to do a lot of design. So, but it's very similar to SolidWorks or Inventor. So if you know those, the transition is going to be easy to learn all.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, it brings something else to mind. Like a lot of the times, and this is something that I talked about in my channel too, like many times. Some people may be familiar with it, but I think that when we're students, many times, especially when we don't have experience, professional experience in the field, we have this imposter syndrome. Like we think that we're gonna have to learn, or we have to memorize every single thing that we learn in the school, and if we don't know, then we're gonna be a failure. Like we're not gonna be able to succeed. We're gonna be lost. But to your point, like once like school gives you an understanding and the basics of, it gives you like a solid background that you can start building on once you get to your job, once you get to your specific field. Like if you have a basic knowledge of Inventor, like you mentioned, or AutoCAD Mechanical or whatever it is, then you can easily transition and just kind of like figure out the way to use another similar software.
Exactly. I think we do get carried away by trying to learn the tools when really you want to understand the concepts. The key point there is, if you understand concepts, applying the tools is it's on a second plane. It's not as important. You're gonna learn it on the field, probably. It depends, right? I don't really have that much experience in the field, and NASA is a really great place to work. So I would recommend like balancing things out, like try to understand the concepts of the field that you really want to work on. I'm really good at thermodynamics, and I put in the effort, and I think I persevere. Even though it's a difficult field, I understand the concept so much better now that it helps me on the work every day. But I wasn't as good on other areas of mechanical engineering, like controls or solids. Those were a little bit more complicated for me, and I don't really use them on every day. Yeah. So I really capitalize on exploiting my strengths to be a good candidate.
Yeah, I think it really does make a lot of sense, because mechanical engineering itself, it's so broad. Like you just get a taste of many different fields, like aerospace, electrical engineering, industrial systems engineering. Like obviously we have like the propulsion side, right? Like, so those are just like some very high level, like even robotics with controls, and like even like if you even have the chance to take what's that mechatronics and or things like that, right? So you have the ability to learn about so many different subjects, and there's no way that you're gonna be good at every single one of them. So usually you're gonna tend to be better at one or the. For example, like I was really good in fluids, like fluid mechanics, fluid dynamics. I was really good at that. But then like thermodynamics, I was okay. Like mechanical design, I was also like okay. Like controls, I sucked. Like I dropped that class. I was like, I'm not taking this class.
I think the class that I did really dislike the most was probably solids. I did really good in statics, but when I took solids, mechanics of solids, dude, that class was hard, and I hated it. I hated putting the work in that. I was always thinking of airplanes and doing something else when I was taking on that class. So I say just follow what you really like. Of course, make sure you pass those classes, because that's going to be important.
Those are the background,
Yeah.
Because I think for those listeners who may be new to engineering, you usually take statics, and then after that you take dynamics, and then after that you take solids. Like it depends, like I think it really depends on the school that you go to, like how they're gonna name it. It's like mechanics of solids, mechanics of materials. They're all the same thing. It's just a combination of dynamics and the statics. Like,
that's true. Yeah,
more like stress related. But yeah, that's awesome. So when it comes to your experience in NASA, what are if you had, so let's say 3 takeaways from your experience so far working from NASA. So obviously you did mention, for example, that technical skills are needed. You have to have a background on what you're doing, what you're talking about. What else do you think would be useful? What are 2 other takeaways that you think, like off the bat, like maybe personal relationships or communication? Like what are some other skills that you would need to perform well in your job that helps you perform well?
When you're applying, you mean like
no, like you performing as an intern, like what's helping you do your job basically efficiently?
Well, I think the most important thing is attitude, because every day there's going to be problems. And something very cool that my mentor said is that if there wasn't new problems every day, they wouldn't hire us. We're problem solvers, you know. And so you gotta go with that mindset and attitude to try to fix a new problem and try to do it in such a way that you can do it effectively. So it's all about the attitude of going out there. Of course, it's important to understand the concept. So do some research before you start on how everything works. That's gonna help a lot. And try to be informed and be active. You know.
Right. That's awesome.
So another thing that you see a lot in teams, and not only like at NASA, I think everywhere, is that you don't have to try to solve a problem on your own. That's why we work in teams, you know?
Right, exactly. No, that's a really good point. So those are awesome takeaways, by the way, like the attitude. I really do like the attitude. Like, just reminds me one time also, like something similar happened to me. Like, he wasn't my mentor, but he was an older, he was a retired submariner. And he was saying like, yeah, man, like we have all these problems and like blah, blah. And then he looked at me, he's like, well, that's what we're here, man. Like, we're here to help solve problems, you know? So like, I was like, you know, you're right. But yeah, things that you learn along the way. So you did mention that you have a mentor. How helpful do you think has the mentor has been in your career? And would you recommend young people having one?
Definitely. I think my academic mentor was my thermodynamics professor, and he's a great teacher. I always admire his skill to teach, and despite my performance on thermodynamics too, I really learned at the end, and he was very approachable, and you know, having that someone that has experience in academia as well as industry helps you guide your career a lot. I think that's very important to seek on university as well as on your job. Usually when you apply for an internship, you get assigned a mentor. So you don't have to worry about that part. But I would encourage everyone to look for mentors in their school. And they don't have to be like on your school, but it has to be like related to your academics, you know?
Right.
And a good way to find one is through organizations. I'm part of SHIP, which is the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and AIAA, which is like the biggest aerospace organization in the nation. And people is really approachable when you talk about something they do, because people love to talk about what they do. And if you're interested in something they do, you instantly become friends, you know?
That's a really good way to put it. So with respect to your experience with SHIP, so I did give a talk to the Arizona chapter, Arizona University chapter, I want to say a couple of months ago. It was all through Zoom, obviously, right? Like, I didn't fly out there, but that was the first time I heard of it. Like, I wish I would have known about SHIP and in general engineering societies, or maybe I knew about him and I just didn't want to. I was like, I ain't got time for that shit. Like, but I didn't know how helpful they could be for my development as a young engineer. You know, and I think that people may not know that. Like, students, when you talk about societies, like I guess some people start thinking immediately, oh, like frats and like drinking and partying, but like that's not. It may be part of it. Who knows? Yeah, for sure. But like, it's not all they do, you know. So I think it also helps. And I think it's that professional development help that you get. That it's like the most, the biggest advantage for everyone, because everyone is there to do that as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think it's very funny what you mentioned, that people don't really know about them, or they do, but they don't really care. That's so true, because I remember the first one I went to one of their meetings, I was probably a sophomore. And and it's so funny because I talked with my friends who I went to that meeting for the first time, and we play around saying like, yeah, we just wanted free pizza, free food, you know. But we stick because it was such inspirational place, man. And the true stories that you hear there, they're so cool. So I'm very fortunate to be on, like, my university has one of the largest chapters in the nation, because I'm from South Texas. So most of the population is Hispanic, and it makes sense that our chapter is large.
Right.
And so you get to see these people that come to the same university that you come, and they're great professionals doing what you like. And seeing people like role models really inspires you and help you to go the extra mile. I think inspiration and motivation are so important. And I know we haven't talked, engineering is so technical, but I think the soft skills are so important as well, because they're gonna help you push when you can't. Sometimes engineering is hard. It's not gonna be easy, but you really need to persevere, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also, especially when you are trying to move up the ladder, or maybe you want to get to be an engineering director, or maybe a chief engineer, or like depending on like your preferences, like your technical skills and your expertise. I think that one of the main things that's going to help you go up that ladder, you're not going to go up the ladder if people don't like you. That's a fact. Like you're not going to get promoted. You may not even get hired if people don't like you. So your soft skills, how you communicate, how you behave, how you treat others, like how proactive you are, like how friendly. You were talking about attitude. Like all those things are going to play a big role, that even if you're not the smartest guy in the room, they're going to help you, like they're going to move you up the ladder.
Exactly. And I think because going up that ladder, like you mentioned, is about teamwork and trying to share your opinions and your ideas effectively. You know, that's so important, because as a team, as a leader, you need to have that ability to inspire and to listen as well, you know. And those things are soft skills that you need to earn. Doesn't matter how good you're technically. I mean, it does matter, but it's not as heavy as like how good you are on teams and how can you solve the problem with the resource you have. Not only can you solve it on your own. Like, yeah, that's great, but you would need to multiply yourself to solve the problem. There's no time for one single person to do everything that you need to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the technical skills are important for sure. Like you have to know what you're doing, what you're talking about. You have to have an understanding, obviously. So the way I put it is like you have to be competitive. You know, like you have to know your thing. You have to know your stuff.
Exactly.
But the heavy compliment, what's really gonna turn the gears in your engineering career with respect to promotions and who knows, like opportunities, is gonna be the way your soft skills in short. I mean, that's the bottom line. So when it comes to now that your second internship in NASA, your internship at NASA twice, you got your first internship when you were a freshman. That's awesome. So now you're being racking up a lot of experience. You're graduating this May?
I'm graduating this fall.
Yeah,
I'm just taking like one class per semester.
Right. So you graduate. So will you be working at NASA also in the summer? Would that count as a third internship?
Yeah. How that works, it's open to discussion, right? I can work there if I want to, or I can go to school. They're really flexible about it. I want to go back, but they gotta approve, you know.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you for sure, but it's very likely. Yeah.
Yeah. So you would like to, work there. Like you don't know, but like you would like to work there.
Yeah, exactly.
Got it. So you'll be graduating in December. What does it feel like to be almost done with school?
I mean, I've been almost done for the last year. Like I mentioned, my last internship, I was full-time.
Yeah.
And I couldn't graduate since last summer, but I started working because I needed the money, you know.
Right.
It didn't really, and it's very important to capitalize on your undergraduate level, because there's a lot of opportunities you can get as an undergraduate. So it doesn't matter if you take a little bit longer. I think it's going to be 4.5 years for me, you know, 5.5 years, which is a year over than conventional. And I think it has worked out really well for me, because it's a smooth transition from academia to industry, where I originally was in school full time, and taking like an internship in the summer or part-time in the afternoon. And right now it's the opposite. So it's a very smooth transition to the different worlds because they are so different.
Right. That's awesome. It seems like you're ready to transition. You pretty much already transitioned. You're just kind of like finishing school. Now it's like school is like almost like secondary. It's like you're already like a worker. It's more like I'm just finishing a school type thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, it's like, you describe it great.
Right. So when it comes to NASA opportunities, do they offer programs where you can like transition to different teams, or once you get into a technical field, they just keep you there? Like, do they offer rotational programs?
So it really depends on like the branch or the organization that's going to hire you, as well as the center. So there's also so many different type of internships. There's the regular internship. There's these pathways, which is more like a co-op, and there's also programs related to NASA where you can work in other place in a project with NASA. So there's so many opportunities with NASA you can really take advantage of. But what were you saying? I wanted to mention that beforehand.
Oh, okay, cool. So they do so it really depends on how you're hired by NASA that they kind of offer rotational programs.
Exactly. So like there's those type of different internships, but in my one, which is pathways, and you can apply through usajobs.gov. There's both. Some centers do it where you work in one organization, like for example, you're gonna work on as a mechanical, you're gonna work on cryogenics, and then you're gonna work in propulsion, and then you're gonna work in pneumatics. One each rotation. And there's others where you are hired to be on that single branch. So there's both.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. I think that's very good to hear. That they give you an option to kind of like take a taste like different fields within NASA. I think
exactly.
It kind of like helps, especially people that really haven't figured out what they really want to do. They just know they want to be in space, but they don't. One thing that we also didn't talk about is that when we go into the field, like we're not going to design a rocket on our own from the ground up. You're going to be working on a very specific, like tiny part of the overall system. Like you're never going to be in charge of you may be in charge of the whole thing, but at that point, you're not really an engineer. You're more like a program manager, like a project manager. Like you just lead the way.
In my case, I'm working in ground support systems. I cannot tell you on which, but it's a very tiny part of the whole system.
And like you work in a very specific, like a little like a little valve, maybe. Like who knows? Like
exactly.
It's really funny how like our expectations as students, and then we go into the field, you're like, wait, what? That's it?
And I think that's where like most people is afraid to like apply to these positions with NASA, because they think they need to know how to build a rocket.
He's like,
that's not really the case.
This is not your first year engineering design class. Not.
Exactly.
Awesome. So what's next for you? Are you planning on? So let's say that you like praying to God, right? Like I hope that you get hired by NASA and like you move forward in your career. Is that somewhere that you see yourself working for the long term if that takes place, or rockets? That's what you want to do, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I love propulsion. Even before joining NASA, now it's kind of getting into a different part. But my previous internship was rocket propulsion. So I really hit the bullseye related to what I wanted to do and what I was actually doing. But so it's really open, man. Like NASA is such a great place to work. I would definitely consider work full time there. And I'm on the pathways to go to a full time position and grow there. And there's so many opportunities to grow there. It's a great place to work. They pay really good. You have great benefits and a great schedule and a lot of vacations.
Yeah,
so it's very tempting.
That's awesome.
It's very tempting. But in the other side, I do want to test my skills and become a subject matter expert on propulsion. And so that's something that I'm probably gonna need to be on a more competitive space. There's a lot of private companies that develop rockets that where you are really gonna be testing your engineering muscle, you're gonna put them to the test, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to. So I might apply somewhere else, or I might stay. I really don't know at this point.
Yeah, it's still early. You got a whole life ahead of you. Like figure out, like move from one place to another. So
Exactly.
yeah, for sure. Like wish you the best.
And
So
something very important, people don't like to apply to places because they think they're gonna be there for their whole life. There's that big cliche that you're gonna be working 9 to 5 on the same place, but in reality, it's just starting your life and your career, and you can always transition, and it's gonna be much more easier when you have the experience.
exactly,
So,
yeah, experience.
so don't
Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
for sure. So what are some to kind of like wrap everything together and close things out? What are some words of encouragement or advice that you would give somebody that is either considering engineering school, or maybe that wants to work at NASA in the future? They want to be astronauts or engineers and propulsion and whatnot. What would you say to maybe a 17, 18-year-old who's like watching?
Man, that's a lot of responsibility, I think. But I think what I would say, go for it, man. It's gonna be hard, but if you're willing to put the work, you can truly become whatever you want to be. There's really everything you can do is within you. I think a lot of people have a mindset where they think I'm not good at math, but you can be. It's not qualities change in people, and we all grow throughout the years. And even if you're not sure what you want to do, just try it and see what happens.
Yeah, just try it. That's definitely great advice. And I want to add to that also, like from your experience, also like getting mentors. You know, like mentors can definitely make a difference. They're not going to solve all your problems, but they can definitely help you streamline the process of you becoming better. Like if you you don't have to have one, but like if you can have one, for sure, like absolutely, right? Also, like as soon as you're a freshman or the earlier that you start looking for internships, that's also like something that don't be afraid to look for internships. Go after it. And also like work on your soft skills that you mentioned. Like the technical skills are going to be taken care of by you learning the technical stuff in engineering, but also don't forget to learn a little bit about psychology, how to talk to others, how to be empathetic, how to be a team player, and things like that.
Yeah, I think you summarized it much better than I did. It's very important to have mentors. Apply to every opportunity out there. When opportunities knocking the door, you open, you know. And the other one, of course, pay attention on class, you know, and develop your soft skills.
For sure. John, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for this conversation. I think it's very, very insightful, and I think it can help a lot of people get some insight on like what NASA is, like what they do, what life is like inside working for NASA, and like also like encourage them to look for internships and like in NASA, because a lot of people would dream about having internship at NASA, like just working at NASA, you know, like NASA has this huge reputation. But
you have to apply, guys. Remember, I didn't make much of it when I applied and I got it. But I think it's back to that syndrome. Don't have that imposter syndrome. You guys are ready.
Right. So where are you someone that it's now that I saw that you're expanding your TikTok, are you planning on sharing more content on your TikTok? Are you planning on opening YouTube, or are you kind of like keeping it private, like it's just for fun type thing?
I love to do it, but I don't really have much time. So for me, it's just like a fun thing right now. I think it's really exciting. I think what you're doing right now, it's great. I mean, you're probably going to help a lot of people.
Awesome. Thank you. I hope so. Yes, that's the goal.
And yeah, for sure, man. If you ever need more help, I'm here to help you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So welcome. Thank you. Thank you for your time. And I'm going to stop recording now. How do you stop?